Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 10, text number 33. Tasmai Tubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedhase Atma Jota Gunais Chana Mahimne Brahmane Namaha Tasmai Tubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedhase Atma Jota Gunaischana Mahimne Brahmane Namaha Tasmai Tubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedhase Atma Jota Gunaischana Mahimne Brahmane Namaha Tasmai Tubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedhase Atma Jota Gunaischana Mahimne Brahmane Namaha. Bhagavate Vasudevaya Atma Jota Brahmane Namaha. Tubhyam Bhagavate Brahmane Namaha. Tubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Atma Jota Tasmai Bhagavate Vasudevaya Atma Mataji's Tubhyam Vasudevaya. Tasmai, because you are not to be understood from the material platform, we simply offer obeisances unto him, Tubhyam, unto you, Bhagavate, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudevaya, unto Vasudeva, the origin of Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha, Vedhase, unto the origin of creation, Atma Jota Ganaichana, Mahine, unto you whose glories are covered by your personal energy, Brahmane, unto the Supreme Brahman, Namaha are respectful obeisances. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. O Lord, whose glories are covered by your own energy, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are Sankarshan, the origin of creation. You are Vasudeva, the origin of the Chaturvyuha. Because you are everything and are therefore the Supreme Brahman, we simply offer our respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. Instead of trying to understand Krishna in detail, it is better to offer respectful obeisances unto him. For he is the origin of everything and is everything. Because we are covered by the material modes of nature, he is very difficult for us to understand unless he reveals himself to us. Therefore, it is better for us to acknowledge that he is everything and offer obeisances unto his lotus feet. Om Jnanatamarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Ukam Kotuvachalam Pangumam Hayate Gavin Yat Kripa Taraham Bande Sri Gurum Janataranam Vanchakapatribhyascha Kripasanubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So here, we're hearing of the importance to offer obeisances to Krishna. Generally, in the material world, people are proud and don't want to offer respects to others, but want to be respected. I remember when I was a young little lad, about 12 years old, I remember saying, I'll never bow down to anybody. Little puffed up rascal I was. But then the material nature humbled me and I bowed down happily. So Krishna, he's created this world so that anybody that has a little insight will understand there's someone greater than me and bows down. And certainly this is the reality. Krishna is greater than everybody. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains different austerities. It is the austerities of the body. Deva, Dvija, Guru Pragya, Pujanam, Socham Arjavam, Brahmacharyam, Vihimsacha, Sarira, Tapa Ushate. These are the 5 austerities of the body. To bow down to God. It's an austerity. It means there's got to be some humility. So to bow down to God, Deva Dvija, to bow down to the Brahmana, to bow down to the Guru, to bow down to superiors. And in the translation there, in the word for word, Prabhupada says, father and mother. And that's why there's so much respect in India for the father and mother. In the West, we're very rebellious, isn't it? We have our Georgia visitor here. We're very rebellious in the West, but here in India, there's some culture. It's still there. Gradually, the West is moving in, and unfortunately, it's kind of dwindling. But yeah, this is the Prabhupada says the mental culture of Krishna consciousness. The mental culture of Krishna consciousness. By bowing down, the mind becomes purified. By offering respects to Krishna, to the brahmanas, to the devotees, we get purified. The mind gets purified. So it's good to bow down. When Prabhupada first went to New York City, 1965, very few people were coming, but gradually some people were coming. And they were from uptown. Some of them were kind of elderly. And no one knew the culture. No one knew of bowing down to a saintly person. No, it was unheard of. But the devotees that were living there, they noticed Prabhupada would bow down to his guru and make some offering of bhoga to his guru. So every day they were seeing Prabhupada bowing down. So the devotees kind of caught on, and they would see Prabhupada and they would bow down. And Prabhupada could see them making some advancement now. But some of the people who had been coming for some time, they didn't like this bowing down. And Prabhupada gave a class, and then he asked if there's any questions. And one person said, I don't understand, why are they bowing down? I don't like this bow down. Why? And Prabhupada said, just as you can't understand why they're bowing down, they're also can't understand why you're not bowing down. So it's natural when we come in contact with a superior person, someone more elevated than ourselves, and we bow down. We get their mercy in that way. So Deva Dvija Guru Pragya Pujanam Socham Arjavam. Socham means clean, an austerity of the body, or for one to be clean. I remember there's one devotee here in India. He was a student, but he wasn't living in the dormitory. There's students, they have dormitories at universities. And I said, why aren't you living in the dormitory? He said, the students there, they bathe once a week. And it smells so bad, I can't stay with them. Also in America, it was a very common thing. Once a week. No culture, right? It's so dirty. In France, this product, perfume, came out because they thought it was unhealthy to bathe. So they would go for a year or two without bathing. So therefore, perfume was needed. Became very popular, perfume, because they smelled so bad. They thought it was unhealthy, believe it or not. Hundreds of years ago, they thought it was unhealthy to bathe. So, of course, what is most important to be clean is the inside. To clean the body, not that difficult, but to clean the inside, that's a big challenge. Very difficult to cleanse the heart, to cleanse the mind. The biggest challenge we'll face in life is to have a clean heart, to have a clean mind. But Krishna, he is very pure, the most pure. So when we come in contact with Krishna, guess what happens? We also become pure. That purity rubs off onto us. Brahmarpanam brahmahavir brahmagna brahmanam brahmayavatena gantavyam brahmakarma samadhi. That one who is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual world because of his full contribution to spiritual activities in which that which is consumed is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So whatever we accept, it's in relation to Krishna. We don't take any type of food that's not been offered to Krishna. We don't eat bhoga. Why? Krishna says, Yagishishtasana hashanta. The devotees of the Lord, they're free of all sin. Why? Because they eat food which is first offered in sacrifice. Others, however, who are just eating whatever, they're eating sin. People that eat food that has not been offered to Krishna yet, they're eating sin. This is Krishna's statement. So, therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he was very enthusiastic for devotees to distribute prasadam. And of course, books. So we only eat that which has been offered to Krishna. We only want to hear things that are in relation to Krishna. It's like there's one instance where a devotee, Raghunath Das Goswami, he wouldn't speak directly to Lord Chaitanya, but he would speak through his secretary, Srop Damodar. So he said, what is my duty? This is the question, what is my duty? So he gave 8 things. Don't dress very opulently. Sometimes people like to dress real fancy and spend a lot of money. I was in the airport yesterday in Hyderabad, and believe it or not, there was a pair of tennis shoes being sold for 62,000 rupees. Can you imagine? That means people are paying that much for a pair of tennis shoes. That's $800 US. I asked the worker there, how much is that in US dollars? $800. It's insane. People spend, $1,000 on a suit to try to look good, impress people. But we dress simply, dhoti, kurta. We don't have a big lineup of things that we wear. Dhoti, kurta, sari, simple. Therefore our motto is simple living, high thinking. So he said, don't dress very opulently, don't eat very rich food also. It's like they have these big restaurants, spend so much money also. I remember one person told me, this is 47 years ago, he was going to have breakfast and he was going to pay $200 for breakfast. And this is 47 years ago, which means that's like, I don't know, it's like $800 or $1,000 or something. People just have money to throw away. Crazy. So we eat simply. Fruits, vegetables, healthy, nice. So don't dress very opulently, don't eat very opulent food. Don't talk like the people in general, nor hear what they have to say. It's like throughout the world, people, they want to hear the morning news. Every morning they hear the morning news. And what is it? It's all bad news, right? All bad news, no good news. And then they go to work and come back, and then they hear the evening news. Any good news? No good news, all bad news. So Prabhupada said, my disciples, they don't read the newspaper. There was a channel in Brazil. There was a radio station. It was called the Good News Channel. Just good news. No bad news. Can you imagine? But they had to stop after 6 months. They ran out of good news. No more good news. But we're very fortunate. Every morning we get the good news. Srimad Bhagavatam, it's all good news. And then in the evening we got more good news. Bhagavad Gita, more good news. It's all good news. This movement is made up of good news. Prabhupada has brought the good news. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We're the servants. Good news, very good news. Yeah? Smash that false ego. So that's 4, then 4 more. He says, always chant the holy. Oh no, he says, offer your respects to everyone, and don't desire respect for yourself. Now it gets more subtle. Because Raghunath Das Goswami, he would pay, what was it, 2,000 times a day to the Vaishnavas and 1,000 to the deities, I believe. He would pay obeisance a lot. But one devotee mentioned that actually if you figure that out, if you time that, it would be very difficult to do 3,000 every day. So he was mentioning it was not full dandavats, but pranam, which is more practical. Because that take a long time. 3,000 takes time to pay obeisances. So but that's the point, to offer respects to others, not to desire respect for ourselves. And then always chant the holy name of Krishna. That's a challenge. That's a challenge. To always chant the names of Krishna. And then it gets more and more subtle. The last one is the most difficult. He says, and always serve Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan within your mind. These are the 8 instructions that Lord Chaitanya gave to Raghunath Das Goswami that we can also appreciate. But the most important one is chanting the holy names of Krishna. That's the process in this age. And it has to be done with respect. Prabhupada was speaking about this. He went into to the temple room there in Calcutta, 1975. And the devotees were chanting in front of the deities, and they were all standing like this, with their hands behind their back. And Prabhupada was surprised. So he was slapping them. He was slapping their hands. And then in the class, Prabhupada gave the class that morning, he said, you never stand before the deity with your hands behind your back. Disrespectful. Where's the best place for the hands? In Kirtan. That's right. That's the best. Have the hands up. Krishna, please, I surrender. Please, please take me. Next best, Namaskar. This is probably the most popular Mula mantra in India. Even in America, the people, they do these seminars and stuff on TED, and they'll stand there like this. They'll be talking, they're like this. And they, where do they get this from? Getting it from India. So the next best is to stand, with your hands like this in front. But it's where the hands are. Best is up. Next, never behind. And I even saw one time, I couldn't believe it. The head pujari at one temple, he's standing like this in front of the deities. And I'm thinking, man, that's probably the worst. Prabhupada would definitely slap that guy. You stand like this in front of the deities. No, you don't stand like that in front of the deities. Hide in your hand. Yeah. So there has to be a proper mood. Like when we're chanting our japa also, very attentively. The most inattentive japa I think I ever saw was, believe it or not, in Mayapur. There was a devotee playing soccer, football, chanting his japa. I was thinking, boy, that's probably the most inattentive japa I've ever seen. And then I saw, believe it or not, I saw one friend of mine, he was watching TV, he was watching a movie, chanting. I said, Prabhu, you're trying to chant the names of Krishna, you're watching a movie? Come on. He said, Vijay, this is the only way I could chant my japa. I guess maybe it's better than nothing, but that's pretty inattentive japa. So it's very important that we do everything very attentively. So Deva, Dvija, Guru Pragya, Pujanam, Saucham, Arjavam. So Arjava means to live a simple life. We're so fortunate that Prabhupada has brought this nice culture of Krishna consciousness, teaching us how to live, what not to do, what to do. That's the mode of passion is people don't know what to do, they don't know what not to do. Just like before we joined, we had also, many of us didn't know what to do. I didn't have a clue. I asked my mother, what should I do? She said, I don't know. She didn't know what to do. People don't know what to do. The Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, these are guidelines for the human form of life. And if we follow these teachings, the result will be we'll get purified and we go back to Godhead. That's what these are. These are instruction guides on how to go back to the spiritual world. We just have to take it seriously. Prabhupada, many times he would use this word serious and sincere, but they're very similar. Serious means thoughtful. Thoughtful. In other words, when we're reading Prabhupada's books, we should really try to absorb the mood. Like Prabhupada was watching one devotee, Jamuna Devi, reading. And Prabhupada instructor said, when you're reading the books, you should feel what you're reading. Don't just read it like a novel. Sometimes you might be reading and you read a whole page and nothing went in. Isn't it? It's like inattentive japa. Sometimes we chant a whole round and we didn't hear one mantra. It was the mind. So when you're reading, you should really try to absorb the feeling, the mood that Srila Prabhupada's expressing. Prabhupada said his purports are his devotional ecstasies. His devotional ecstasies. So these are really nice, Actually, each one of the sentences in Prabhupada's purports is like a sloka in itself. Because he said, I didn't write these books. Krishna, he wrote these books. And therefore you would find Prabhupada reading his books sometimes. And Shrutakirti, he would see Prabhupada reading his books and said, Prabhupada, you're reading your own books. Prabhupada said, I didn't write these books. Krishna wrote these books. And he's relishing reading his own books. And one time he told Shrutakirti, read from the Krishna book. And Shrutakirti said, where? And Prabhupada said, my books are like sweet balls. Wherever you read, it's going to be sweet. And it's true. It's all sweet. It's all nectar. Just like this amazing pastime here with these Nalakuver and Manigriva. Right? They were having a good time. Right? with naked women there in the lake, thinking they're just having a great time. Narada Muni comes by, and the ladies say, "Oh, you better cover up. Might get cursed." But Nana Kuvera and Managriva, they're intoxicated, didn't care. "Oh, you like to be naked? Okay. Trees. You'll be naked for thousands of years." How many years? 5,000 years. There's some old trees out there. So sometimes people also, they like to go around naked. Tree, next line. But Krishna is so kind, Narada Muni is so kind. Narada Muni is my favorite. He's amazing, he's wonderful. So he cursed them to become trees, but then they became trees in Gokul. And then Krishna has this amazing Damodar pastime. He brings the mortar between the trees, and they break and smash, and these demigods come out, and the cowherd boys are watching this whole thing. The demigods are talking to Krishna, and Krishna is talking back to them. They're like, "Wow, this is amazing." So then they became devotees. Narada Muni is so kind, he cursed them, but they became devotees. Narada Muni, he says, devotees of the Lord do not think that the services they do are actions under their own control, but they are expressions of Krishna's mercy. Just like this big temple is coming up, this beautiful temple is coming up after so much work. But I guarantee you, Gokul Chandra Prabhu over there, he knows it's not me. Isn't it? He's working hard. But he knows it's Krishna's mercy that this beautiful temple is coming up. And devotees know. It's like on book distribution. Sometimes so many books go out, but the devotee knows it's not me. It's Krishna. It's Krishna. And as soon as one thinks, "Oh, it's me, I'm the doer," and then he enters into called hot water. You enter into difficult times. It's described in the Bhagavad Gita. There's 5 factors of action. The super soul, the soul, the body, the senses, and the endeavor. The endeavor. 5 factors of action. But of the 5, which one is the most important? Super soul. Nothing moves without the sanction of the super soul. Therefore he says, Upadrishtanamanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwara paramat meti chapyukto dehesmin purusha paraha. That within this body, there's another transcendental enjoyer. He's the Lord, he's the supreme proprietor, he's the overseer and permitter. He's the overseer. He oversees everything. He sees everything. Like I remember when my mother, she would tell me, "Now you be a good boy, because God, He's watching you." And I would look up like, I don't see any God watching me. And then I'd do my nonsense. But then I read this, the Bhagavad Gita. He's the overseer. He sees everything. Not only does He see every action, He sees our thoughts, which is kind of scary, right? He sees our thoughts. Therefore, devotees, we try to have pure thoughts. We don't want to disturb Krishna with our nonsense thoughts. So He's the overseer and He's the permitter. Nothing happens without the sanction of Krishna. Nothing. We try to be the controllers ourselves sometimes. Like on book distribution. Sometimes a book distributor he'll try to convince someone to take a book. And then he's thinking, I'm going to convince this guy to take a book, you know. And then the person feels that this person's trying to, you know, force me to do something I don't want. And then the devotee, he kind of gets on the false ego level, where he's trying to, you know, he's trying to take control of the situation. And then the person he's trying to distribute books to, he feels the ego, you know, he feels that controlling nature, and it becomes a clash of false ego. So we don't want that. No. Depend on Krishna. Therefore Krishna says, Cetasa sarva karmani, mayi sanyasya mapara, buddhi yogam pashita machita sattambhava. He says, in all activities depend upon me and work under my protection. And such consciousness, and such mentality, be fully conscious of me. So we depend on Krishna. Krishna will protect us. He'll maintain us. Imagine there's a husband and wife. And at one point, the wife decides to divorce her husband. And he's like, all right, they get divorced. But he maintains her. Throughout the rest of her life, he still maintains her. I mean, wouldn't that be unusually kind? So this is our situation with Krishna. We left Krishna. We turned our back on Krishna. We left Krishna, trying to enjoy his property. But he's still maintaining us. For how long? Millions of lifetimes. He's so kind. Even though we left him, trying to enjoy his property, thieves, basically, trying to enjoy his property, but still he's so kind. He's maintaining us. And he's trying to encourage us to go back to reality. Try to understand who you are. So that therefore he comes. And he gives us the Bhagavad Gita. He gives us the Srimad Bhagavatam. He sends his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, to help us. So this is the mercy of Krishna. In one purport, Prabhupada, he says the pure devotee does not have a material body because of his being surcharged with the current of Krishna's identical interest. Powerful statement there. And this is what Prabhupada did. He left India for a year, practically no result. Then people started coming, showing interest. And some of them were giving their life. They decided they wanted to give their life to Prabhupada. Now, keep in mind, at that time in New York City, there was an unwritten rule: don't trust anyone over 30. That was the old generation. Call them fuddy-dudds. The old generation. Don't trust anyone over 30. So Prabhupada shows up, 70 years old, twice that. And the youth are giving their life to him. So people are coming and surrendering to Krishna. They're catching the current, that pure current. So many people are coming. There was one devotee, Mukunda, Adhikari at the time. Now he is Maharaj. Prabhupada was in the temple there, and he said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I'm going to India. I'm going to stop off in San Francisco, then I'm going to India. And Prabhupada said, oh, that's nice. Have a good trip. And then he said, oh, and by the way, while you're in San Francisco, maybe you could start a center. And he just said it nonchalantly, off the top of his head, nothing organized. And Mukunda said, yeah, okay. And that was it. Then he and his wife and Yamuna, they went to the West Coast. They first went to Oregon, and they saw their friends Sam and Melanie, who became Samasundar and Melody. And they went down to San Francisco, and they started a center. And they were distributing prasadam. This was 1967, when there was thousands of hippies. It was like the beginning of the hippie movement, 1966, 67. And it was called the Summer of Love. We would call it the Summer of Lust. They called it the Summer of Love. And thousands of hippies had come to the West Coast. And they're hippies, they didn't have any money, so many of them were starving, so the devotees were feeding them. And many of them became very interested in Krishna consciousness. So Mukunda wrote a letter to Prabhupada. That Prabhupada, we're over here in San Francisco, and there's so many people interested in Krishna consciousness. I think it would be good if you came to the West Coast. So Prabhupada wrote back, yeah, okay, let's do it. So Mukunda sent an airline ticket to him. Prabhupada took a plane to San Francisco. He's 70 years old, never been on a plane before. That must have been quite an experience. He said the houses looked like little matchboxes. So Prabhupada, try to catch this scene. Prabhupada arrives at the airport in San Francisco. Now there's no security. So all the devotees were right there at the gate. And they're chanting. And they're young and they're loud. About 50 devotees are chanting Hare Krishna very loudly. So you can imagine the ecstasy of Prabhupada when those doors opened. Prabhupada heard the loud chanting of Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada must have had one of those oceanic smiles. He had this amazing smile. So I'm sure one of those amazing oceanic smiles was on his face. So Prabhupada came out of the plane and everybody's given him a gift. And Prabhupada's only got 2 hands. And Prabhupada used to say how his father would say, Krishna, he has 10 hands and he's given you so much, and with your 2 hands, what can you hold? And also, he's got 10 hands to take things away from you, and what can you hold? You're trying to keep with your 2 hands what Krishna's taking. So Prabhupada's only got 2 hands, and people are giving, and he's giving things back to them. He's giving gifts back. So Prabhupada must have been so happy. He had not stepped a foot in San Francisco, but there's 50 people there chanting very loudly. He had not stepped a foot, but the current was there in Mukunda. So he spread the current there in San Francisco. And then Prabhupada sent people to Los Angeles, to Australia, to Germany, to Japan, all over the world with the current. And they were spreading. They were spreading the movement all over the world. And these are people that have just been in the movement for 1 or 2 years, just young devotees. And this is still going on. We're distributing about 10 million books a year, and all these books, every one of them, have the current of Srila Prabhupada's teaching. Not only his, Krishna and Prabhupada. So we want to spread this current all over the world so that people can become purified, so that people can understand who they are. People don't know who they are. Millions of people here in India, although they have the culture, they have the knowledge, they think they're Hindus. They think they're Indians. What to speak of the rest of the world? Americans, Russians, Chinese, everybody's in this illusion. So we have to try to wake them up from their amnesia. I'll tell you an interesting story. There was one young man. He was riding his bike in California around Santa Barbara. And he crashed, and he hit his head. And he hit his head so hard, complete amnesia. Didn't know his name. Nothing. Zero. So he didn't know what to do. He picked up the bike, thinking that, it's also laying down. So he picked up the bike and he's walking the bike, not knowing where to go. So there was a devotee there. He said, "Hey, how's it going?" He started talking. And "Where are you from?" He said, "I don't know." "What do you mean you don't know?" "Yeah, I crashed my bike and I hit my head and I don't know anything. I don't know my name." And the devotee was shocked. So he said, "Well, I'll tell you who you are. You're the eternal servant of Krishna." He said, "All right, at least now I know something." So the devotee took compassion on this person, and he took him under his wing, took him to his apartment, and he trained him. Krishna consciousness. Became a book distributor. Became a good book distributor. But then after some time, a couple of years, he decided he wanted to find out who he is materially. He found out who he was spiritually, servant of Krishna, and he was happy with that. But who am I materially? So his bike crashed around the Santa Barbara University, big university there. So he had his picture taken, and he put some flyers around the university. "If you know who I am, call this number. I have amnesia." So many people called. "Yeah, I know who you are." He found out his name. Even found out who his parents were, and he was very surprised to find out that he was a big atheist before the bike crash. So Krishna covered that up. Krishna's good, He covered that up, became a good devotee. Yeah. So this is Krishna's magic, we say. If you want to experience the magic of Krishna consciousness, go on book distribution. How many book distributors do we have here? 1, 2, 3. Come on, there must be more. Raise your hands. Come on. All right. You guys are shy here. I mean, you'd think, "Hey, who's the book distributor?" You'd raise your hand up, but these devotees are shy here. You got a number, and it's magic, isn't it? Book distribution, it's magic. You see, actually, and it's stated, "Naham tishtami Vaikunthe." Lord Vishnu says, "I'm not in Vaikuntha. I'm not in the hearts of the yogis, but I am wherever my devotees are spreading my glories." So you want to meet Krishna? Go on book distribution. Of course, now we're building this temple. There's a lot of energy going there. But Gokul Chandra told me that after this temple is built, we're going to be preaching a lot. Right? So, Krishna's mercy, this temple is coming up. It'll attract people. But people don't pay obeisances to buildings. They pay obeisances to purity. So many temples in India just abandoned, isn't it? Because there's no life. People pay obeisances to purity. It's like Prabhupada. There were so many Bhagavad Gitas before he went to America. He says there was hundreds. No one became a devotee of Krishna. Not one. Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita goes there. Thousands of devotees joined. I was one of them. I read the Bhagavad Gita. I was convinced Krishna's God. That's it. I was looking for the truth. My journey ended when I read the Bhagavad Gita. That's it. Because Prabhupada presented it as it is. And therefore he called it Bhagavad Gita as it is. And all these other Bhagavad Gitas, you can call them Bhagavad Gita as it isn't. It's not the real thing. People are speculating. There was one commentator, scholar, And he's commenting on the Bhagavad Gita, and he's commenting on the verse where it says, Sarvadhamam Parityajya, abandon all varieties of religion and surrender to me, I'll free you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. And what does he say in the commentary? He says, Krishna is asking for too much. Rascals. The fool didn't know that if we surrender to Krishna, what happens? Krishna gives himself to us. So we come out way ahead. We come out looking real good if we surrender to Krishna. But he didn't know that. Even Gandhi. He called Kurukshetra the body and the 5 Pandavas the senses. Like it's just an analogy. Yeah. Kurukshetra is still there. Mahabharata. So we're very fortunate to have this pure knowledge. We should want to share it with others. That's a way to show our gratitude, a way to show that we're grateful. And if we're not grateful, we're great fools. Okay, is there any question or comment or correction?
In the beginning of the purport, Prabhupada says, instead of trying to understand Krishna in details, it is better to offer our respectful obeisances unto him. So, here details, how do we understand that?
The details. Yeah, well, Krishna has many activities when he was here. Now one may try to understand in detail his activities, but it's not possible to understand all the details of Krishna, because he's always expanding. He's always expanding. Even it's mentioned that Krishna doesn't know himself, because he's always expanding. Inconceivable. He's a Chintya, inconceivable. So how can we understand someone who's a Chintya? Impossible. But we can understand him at least enough to surrender to him. It's like the Bhagavad Gita. He has very little information of Krishna. But that's enough for so many people to give their lives to Krishna. Bhagavad Gita is just the ABCs. And you got the Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay. Yes, Gokul Chandra Prabhu. Gokul is cool.
Almost good. I just wanted to ask you, all life you are distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, but also you read a lot. Can you tell us, just for a little encouragement, how many times you read Bhagavad Gita?
Oh, only Krishna knows.
Approximately.
Well, now we know we have this program by Vaiseshika Prabhu. Actually, Prabhupada started this. Some devotees wrote Prabhupada, said, Prabhupada, I'm having some difficulty, can you make some suggestions? And he would suggest to read a chapter of the day. Chapter a day Bhagavad Gita. It's called the Chad. And Vaiseshika Prabhu, he really is absorbed in Prabhupada and Krishna. So he started a whole movement. It's an international movement called the Chad, chapter a day. So I asked him, how long have you been doing this Chad, chapter a day? He said, about 40 years. Every day, chapter a day. So he got me on it, so I've been doing it now for about 15 years. 16 maybe. So every day I read a chapter a day. So I have no idea how many times I read the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, that means every 18 days I read the Bhagavad Gita. So, well, you see in his question, do you read the purports too? So there's some chapters that are very long, 18th chapter, that's very long, a lot of purport. So I have 2 bookmarks in my Bhagavad Gita. One is where I'm reading a chapter a day, and 2 is where I'm reading the translation and the purport. But you can't neglect the purports. Prabhupada's purports in the Bhagavad Gita are just like, whoosh. So I have 2 bookmarks in the Bhagavad Gita. But yeah, the Prabhupada says in one purport that you could read the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam thousands of times, and each time you read it, you get new insight in the subject matter. They don't get old. Krishna was blessed by who? That whatever you speak will be ever fresh. Who blessed him? Anybody know? He was blessed that whatever you speak will be ever fresh. No one knows? Sandipani Muni, his guru. He blessed him because he did some nice service, for his guru. Of course, he doesn't need any blessings to make whatever he speaks fresh. It's always fresh. But yeah, when you read a chapter a day of the Bhagavad Gita, so many things come out that you didn't see before. You'll be amazed. It's like my favorite book, my favorite verse in the Bhagavad Gita is a verse you probably never heard before. Labante Brahma Nirvana Risyak Simakamasa China Dvaitya Tatmana Sarvabhuta Hite. The one who is free of the dualities that arise from doubt, whose mind is always engaged within, thinking of Krishna, who is always busy acting for the welfare of others, and who is free of sin, such a person is understood to be liberated. Now what really caught my attention is that first line, one who is free of the dualities that arise from doubt. That's deep. If we have faith in Krishna, then whatever happens in our life is good. It's for our growth. Sometimes it's hard to see that. In the spiritual world, everything that happens is perfect. There's no duality. Here, so much duality. But when we become completely Krishna conscious, even in this world, you'll be free completely of duality. Everything will be good for our growth. Won't it be nice to have that understanding? That's a deep verse. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Today evening we have a Bhagavad Gita class at 7 p.m. Hare Krishna. இன்னைக்கு மாலை பகவத்கீதை வகுப்பு அருத்தர் விஜய் பிரபு அவர்கள் வழங்குவார்.